Welcome everybody. I had a little rough start getting down here. I had to run upstairs and run back downstairs and got out of breath, running around the house real quick. Had something come up right as I was starting the live stream. Couldn't get it started right away. So I was starting it again, in case if that's still seen, if anyone watching this or not. But anyone who comes on, comes on. I did not announce this live stream. I'm just going to fill in the gaps. And we did Daniel's chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but we were missing chapter 3. So I wanted to do chapter 3, a redo chapter 3 from what I did back on Facebook. And Facebook is doing me a number on Facebook. It's really strange. I can't understand it. But I can't really do live streams on Facebook anymore. They upgraded their system, and every time I do it, there's so many issues and problems that I have simply no way of doing anything. So as I get this thing set up here, I'm going to pull up my scriptures again. So they'll be online. I can look at them. I don't have to look down all the time. I will be referring to the I'll be using the New King James. So let's go ahead and get with the program here in Daniel chapter 3. And in Daniel chapter 3, I'm trying to think of a good title to call it. I just call it The Ingenuity of Humanity, or Things Never Work Out the Way You Think, or something like that. But I could not think of a title for this other than Daniel chapter 3. But anyway, Daniel chapter 3 is familiar. It's about Daniel's friends being in the furnace of fire. So you can say when the heat's on, that's what it's about. So there is no being a Christian does not make you an exempt from ever suffering from any adversity or any problems or ever going through anything. Contrary to what a lot of people teach in especially in America, Bible circles and Christian circles, it seems to be very popular that if you're a Christian, everything is going to be okay. You're a believer, all the world's going to respect you. You're going to be rich. You're going to be prosperous. You're going to be in health. You're going to be prosperous. Everything's going to work out, and you're going to be a bed of roses. And as soon as you become a Christian, you find that not to be true. But you have many ministers trying to sell the gospel that it's all about, you getting rich, getting prosperous, getting healthy, getting wise, being this and being that. But no, we are in the midst of a hostile world. Jesus says we will suffer persecution, unfortunately. And there are times when things we don't understand happen to us, like maybe a COVID virus and things like that. There's no guarantee that things are going to be a bed of roses, not even in the world. See, we live in a hostile world that's hostile to all human beings. And then since it is, this system that's in the world is hostile to every human being, it's really hostile toward Christians. But I'd rather go through life with Jesus than not go through life without Jesus. Don't want to do that. So we're going to go in here. We're going to look at Daniel chapter 3. And Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. And I give a little review real quickly here. When I do Bible studies, I go over names, meaning of names. I also, when it applies and it's appropriate, if there's something there, I will look at it and I will give you the meaning of numeric meaning values, and I'll explain why I do this and what it means. And this is very important here in this particular chapter to understand what's going on. The name meanings and the number numeric meanings add meaning and depth to the text because the the ancient people in Daniel's day would have known this. People all the way up to the Second Temple period would understood what some of these numbers meant, especially in a pagan world where it was drilled into you and these were givens. They're not givens anymore. We have to really look it up and to find out what the flip side of the story and what's going on. With that, we're going to just jump right into verse 1. That's how we're going to be approaching this. We're also going to look at some of the names of the old gods and what they mean. So this is a story about Nebuchadnezzar's making a statue. And some people say he made a statue of himself. Some scholars say that it was a statue of a god, his god, there's all kinds of people are saying all kinds of things, but I think the Bible clarifies everything itself, just despite what scholars say. So let's just look at it. Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar, remember Nebuchadnezzar's name means may Nebo protect the crown. Who is Nebo? Nebo was worshipped by the Babylonians. I'm going to read from Wikipedia, okay? Nebo was worshipped by the Babylonians and Assyrians. Nebo was known as Nishimba in the Sumerian pantheon and gained prominence among the Babylonians. He was identified as the son of the god Marduk, okay? Nebo was the patron god of scribes, literacy, and wisdom. He was also the inventor of writing. He was the divine scribe. He was the patron god of the rational arts and of god of vegetation. He inscribed the fates assigned to man. That was the point I was trying to bring out. He's associated with another scribe god called Nintura. And he is associated with the Mesopotamian moon god. I won't get into all and bore you with all this. You can go on Wikipedia, you can read this pretty much yourself. In Babylonian astrology, Nebo or Nabu was identified with the planet Mercury. This would equate him with Hermes in the Greek pantheon. And so basically, if you follow the storyline, he would ascribe fates to men in order to, especially kings and elites. And he, if you do them right, he'll write out your course of life and make it happen. And so right here, Nebuchadnezzar means may Nebo protect the crown. Again, Nebo, the scribe, will write out the destiny to protect the bloodline so that this new one world ruler would come through Nebuchadnezzar's bloodline. Either be Nebuchadnezzar or his son, Belshazzar, which means the Prince of Bel or Prince of Marduk. It was all about protecting the bloodline, and whoever was going to be the one world ruler, because this is all about one world rule. We modernize it today as a new world order, and it is still going on since Nebuchadnezzar's day, because the book of Daniel's prophetic book describes how this mindset came about and how this new world order, as we call it today, started, its very roots, and how they're planning for an occult Messiah to be raised out of the abyss and inhabit inside of a person, possess them, and that person would take over the world. And that was the whole idea of Nabu, to ensure that would happen. So that's why Nebuchadnezzar was named Nebuchadnezzar, because when the royalty dedicated themselves to the gods. For example, how many know who Jezebel is in the Bible? Jezebel was dedicated to Azra. And some people, including myself, have come to the conclusion that that Jezebel was probably possessed wholeheartedly by a fallen entity called Ishtar or Azra. It's the same entity. And because Jezebel was a high priestess of Ishtar or Azeroth. And so acted just like that capricious god did, okay? And so, when you research this out, you find out they would dedicate their kids to be possessed by entities and make ceremonies that would ensure their kids are possessed by entities. And they thought it was a good thing. Just want to give you a little backdrop there. So Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits, and he set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So let me just go through here. Nebuchadnezzar made Nebo protect the crown. The king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits, its width 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura. Dura means wall. In the province of Babylon, it means mixture, confusion, where things are gelled together and synthesis. The occult world wants to take God's natural order and synthesize it and make it into a new synthetic world. The name Babylon perfectly fits. It fits the prophetic timeline. On and on and on it goes, all the way through the book of Revelation, as we shall see. So let's look at this. There are 3 things here that I jotted down from took some notes from Dr. Anthony George teaching on this a few days ago on Daniel chapter 3, and he put out some pretty good points. He said that there are three things that this particular statue that he made at 60 cubits tall and 6 cubits wide represents. First, it correlates to humanity's ingenuity to build a new world order. So I'm going to just use that premise and just they want to build something, they want to take over something. And so in Genesis chapter 11, I'm going to get the Bible out for this here. In verses 1 and 2, it says, "Now the whole earth was one language, and it came to pass they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there, and they made bricks one another. And basically, Nimrod came, and they built the Tower of Babel." Okay, so here's the first instance where they build something. The ingenuity of man to build a one world government, to make their own bricks, make their own way to build this thing. So it goes back to Nimrod. Actually, Nimrod wanted to restore the order of Genesis chapter 6, and through Nimrod's bloodline and so forth. I won't get into all the details of the royal bloodlines on this segment here. I kind of covered it in the other segments that I did on Daniel. And so the first tower here, the Tower of Babel, is defiance. So let's look at it. The new world order is going to be built upon the Tower of Babel's idea, which is defiance against God. God wanted them to go into all the world and inhabit it, but no, they settled in the plain of Shinar, made bricks and made a tower to escape a next flood. That's the idea. Some people, which from Skywatch TV and other people and other scholars have talked about, this would be a gate of the gods, a way to make contact with the gods, or the fallen angels. They want to make contact with the fallen angels again and reconnect with their Nephilim heritage, okay, with this royal bloodline. And that's an interesting theory, and I think it holds a lot of water. So just to let you know that. So you have here in the Tower of Babel, you're watching the Tower of Babel being built in Genesis chapter 11, and that represents defiance. And here in Daniel chapter 3, we have another ingenious building project going on, a gold statue. And this represents idolatry because they want to worship it. Okay. And then there's a new system that's going to be built, and it is based on universal deception, and that's found in Revelation chapter 13. It's the beast kingdom, the new world order coming to fruition with its one world leader. So you have three stages here of things that connect the dots back to this statue. First, you have the Tower of Babel, which is defiance. And now you have adultery coming into the world, and then you're going to have great deception coming into the world. This is how the new world order works. It's based on defiance, adultery, and basically doing whatever it is you want, whatever your idol is, and universal deception. So I just wanted to share that with you because in fact, the height of the statue describes a backside of the story that most people don't even pay attention to. And I am going to do something, and I'm going to explain why I'm doing it. I'm going to tell you the meaning of the numbers based upon pure logic. I'm going to look at the Chaldean number system because this is Nebuchadnezzar, who was in Chaldean, ruled over there in Babylon, and this is how he was thinking. This is why he designed it 60 cubits tall, which is about 90 feet tall, and 6 cubits wide, which is around 9.5 feet wide. And obviously, this statue probably was on a pedestal, a very tall pedestal, and But anyway, I won't get into all the dimensions, but it says 60 cubits tall. Now, you got to remember Daniel chapter 2. There was another statue in a dream that really terrified him. And he was honoring the God of Daniel because he got the interpretation. Now, he doesn't really know who Daniel's God is. In his own mind, he's going to think in terms of Babylonian thinking. Okay? And the reason why the statue is 60 cubits tall is very simple. Because in the Babylonian Chaldean number system, they identify their gods or the head fallen angel or the head gods according to numbers. Like 60 would be their head god, 55 would be their second in command, and then so forth, etc. 50 would be one, and it represents the top 7 who decree. Okay, and the number 60 is the top god, which is Anu, the one nobody pays attention to, and who I personally have done research on. And through my research, which people can challenge it, and that's fine. Some people will disagree with what I'm saying. That's okay. But Anu, since he's quiet, he kind of fades out, reminds me of Lucifer himself, the devil, who's behind the scenes and nobody sees. And I look at the old god, the Mesopotamian myths about the old gods, not as linear, trying to understand them. I worked in the field of community corrections, worked with inmates, and so I know how this reminds me of a criminal agency, and they will project their own crimes, mirror their own crimes onto the opposition. They would, in other words, their deception. So they want you to think that even though they're talking about the devil, they're flipping it around and trying to make it into God. So like they're overthrowing God. That's how the storyline goes. And they had a battle between Anu and his counterpart, and then Harsag, which would probably most likely, in my opinion, to be Tiamat, or the chaos monster, or Leviathan, and that's found in the book of Job, chapter 42. Okay, but they flip the storyline so you don't know who they're talking about or whatever. It's not the linear storylines that pay attention to. It's the and not so much, and you have to pay attention to the plot, but you also have to understand they are very deceptive, and what they're doing is protecting themselves, providing cover. And they're not really fighting each other. That's what I'm saying. They're very organized. Jesus says a kingdom of, talking about the devils and Satan, his kingdom is not divided. You got to listen to Jesus and not eggheads, but listen to Jesus. Satan's kingdom is not divided. So with that, when I read the pagan myths and storylines, they're not divided, just like they are in the jail and the criminal elements in the jail. They stick together. They may act like they're fighting and infighting in some areas, and sometimes if wrong elements, they will fight. But when push comes to shove, they stick together. And in the jails, I can tell you some stories. And if in my department, I was responsible for programs unit. I also was responsible for commissary and volunteers coming in. So I had a lot of interaction with all over the place. I ran programs like Guitar Jam, Comedy Night, entertained the inmates and so forth, etc. But if someone stole commissary, they all stuck together, wouldn't tell anybody who would steal it. So you have a little game you play. You throw your authority down. I lock down the whole pod. I tear up every single room. I go in there. Me and another deputy would just make havoc. We know we're not going to find what we're looking for, but we know jail, and we know jail etiquette, because the perpetrator who actually stole the commissary is suddenly going to slip in the shower and have a couple of black eyes or fall down the stairs accidentally. And so the idea is to get these guys to punish them. You just got to know how these guys think. So there's just little tidbit of information. I don't know why I gave that to you, but I just know when I'm reading this, I see criminal activity, which is pretty apropos to the devil. So why is this tower 60 feet tall? Because it is Anu. It represents Anu. So this was a statue to Anu, the high god who Nebuchadnezzar would equate with. The most high god of Daniel would be Anu. It's only logical that he would think that, being the pagan mind and very proud person that he was. And so he wanted to make a god that would honor that. Okay. And it was 6 cubits wide. Now, why is it 6 cubits wide? The number 6 in Chaldean numerology, not Bible numerology, means what? It means the planet Venus. It's related to Ishtar. What's Ishtar's job? Ishtar is to help Anu bring his son into the world to rule the world, which would happen to either be Nebuchadnezzar or his son or someone in the royal bloodline. Ta-da! And that fits Nebuchadnezzar's name. May Nebo protect the crown. How you like those apples? I'll tell you. There's a lot in these numbers you don't know. Now, what is Bible number? The Bible numbers have totally different meanings. I'm not sure how it would relate here because it doesn't, it may not. But 60 means it's a shape of a staff. And it means what you lean against, what you lean on, what supports you. That's the idea of 60. And 6 in Bible numerology, most people know, is a number for man, but it's actually a picture of a tent peg. It's more apropos to what people attach themselves to. Will it be God? Will it be the flesh, the devil, the world? Who and what do people attach themselves to? And Ishtar's job is to attach people to idolatry, lust, sex rights. I'm just saying, also warfare, commerce, making just being very Jezebelish. Okay, just put it that way. I won't get into too much more. Those of you who know about Ishtar, Azra, know what I'm talking about. And it's, and I equate that with the whore of Babylon in Revelation chapter, when it talks about in Revelation chapter 17, 18. And so it's also overall commerce. And so it's anything this entity wants to attach humanity to all kinds of material things and lustful things, beauty, warfare, whatever, and pitting people against each other. And so Ishtar was also a war goddess, a huntress, Artemis as well. So this all fits because the job of Ishtar in the storyline is to go into the abyss and bring somebody out. That's the basic gist. And so they want to bring the bloodline king to the surface. And so that's what the statue actually represented. And Nebuchadnezzar, in his brilliant mind, probably most likely, since I'm putting this together, trying to think like how a pagan king would think, a proud king like that would think, who just got shellacked by Daniel in chapter 2 about another statue, and he's going to make a statue to honor that god that he thought it was, Anu. Okay. And so if you add those two numbers together, you get 66. I don't know if this means anything, but the Chaldean, it just it makes sense to me. If I'm going to be a Babylonian king who's going to make this 60 cubits wide, 6 cubits wide and 60 cubits tall, and I know Babylonian numerology, like he probably did. They thought they did magic with these numbers. They add 60 and 6 together, and you get 66. Okay, and 66 indicates accomplishments. It just means blessing. You have emotional, financial, physical blessings. You're going to have success in bringing this entity forth, this bloodline, to bring forth the whom we would call the Antichrist, just to make it simple. Remember, the Antichrist is number 666, no, 666. Just think about it. And also the number 66 talks about a particular type of person who will have accomplishments. That's a superb speaker, very proud, house proud, I call it, just household proud, very just proud of who he is. And so he's very sophisticated, and he's going to have great success. So that's guaranteed in the storyline of Ishtar to help Anu bring his son out of the abyss. It's not his real son. It's another fallen entity that has a job to, but we'll get to that later. So if you add 6 plus 6 together, like you do in Chaldean numerology, that equals number 12. And 12 is the symbolism of this number is suffering and anxiety of mind. It means you will sacrifice the victim. So right now, and that tells me prophetically what's going to happen to Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 4, which I've already done. You just listen to that. Well, Nebuchadnezzar tells how he went mad. He driven into the field and ate grass for 7 periods of time. So there. And so anyway, that's just add that in there. Now, what does the number 12 mean in Bible numerology? Bible numerology, it means harmony of governing order, representative leadership, God or man's. So if you want to apply the biblical numbers as a backdrop, you have human beings are going to go into their idols here. You got to have the context here and worship something because they're made to worship this. They're going to be made to worship, attach themselves to the whore of Babylon, attach themselves to Ishtar's influence in order to get the Anu's, the sun deity or whatever you want to call them, this Anu's son or the Antichrist to come forth through the bloodline. Okay. In order to create a, guess what? That's a governing order. Okay. So number 12. Now, what does 66 mean in Bible numerology? Well, Bible numerology, number 66 means idol worship. So this tells me that humanity will attach to be influenced by Ishtar to produce the devil's son, that's Anu, and this is going to come about and bring about idol worship. This is exactly what this chapter is about in a secular world system that is governed by this entity, okay, which would be the Antichrist, and to create a, number 12, a governing order. That's exactly what Daniel, in the later chapters, I think it's chapter 7, 8, 9, and 10, talk about. The book of Revelation talks about this. Connects with the scripture. You can't tell me that it doesn't. I happen to know this stuff, but I'm just saying. You might find it a little interesting. You might find it a little confusing. But in this Chaldean system, you add all numbers together until you reduce them to a final number. So you have 12, so that'll be 1 plus 2, that equals 3. And 3 in Babylonian numbers mean manifestation. This will manifest, guaranteed to manifest, and it will expand. That's what it means. So in the Babylonian thing, Nebuchadnezzar, if you can follow me, made a statue to Anu, who he thought was the god that Daniel was worshiping, and that Ishtar was going to help bring forth the sun deity through Nebuchadnezzar, because Nebuchadnezzar's name was, may Nebo protect the crown, may Nebo make sure the fates are ascribed for this. He named Daniel Belshazzar, which means the one who protects Marduk, the head Marduk. I mean, 60 could also be Marduk. I won't get into all that, but Marduk's special little treasure, which would be him. Okay. So all this fits with that. And so you have the idea here, this entity that's going to come from the bloodline is going to manifest and his kingdom will expand. So that's what this represents. It's idol worship. It's idol worship to worship a one world governmental system where an antichrist will come forth and rule the world. This is what Nebuchadnezzar was told in the statue. He was that king that founded this ideology. He's the one that laid it down. Actually, Nimrod did, but he's the one that codified it into gold. Okay, the gold, just think of the golden headed dream and you get an idea what gold represents. I won't get into all that at the moment. I'll talk about the meaning of colors and gold later. So Daniel chapter 2, I'm only in verse 1. Chapter 3, verse 2. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather all the satraps, the administrators, the governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, and magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, so Nebo could write the fates to protect the crown. So everybody's in sync with a one world government. That's why he did this. So the satraps and all these people, I'm paraphrasing in verse 3, they gathered together for the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar set up. Then a herald cried aloud. Now, just want to get you the picture. In the book of Revelation, there's another character called the false prophet. He's a herald, okay? So prophetically speaking, just listen to this. Think of how the dots connect to the false prophet, what a false prophet does, okay? Announces the coming of the Antichrist and setting up and helping them establish it. Then a herald cried aloud in verse 4, to you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and language, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, the lyre, the palmistry, in sympathy with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And so at that time, the people heard the sound of these all these musical sounds and musical instruments. I'm just paraphrasing, and they would, in all different languages, they would fall down and worship the image which Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Okay, I want to explain this in a minute. So at a certain time, this would happen. If they're 100 miles away, they can't get there, but they would have to bow in the direction of the statue, wherever they're at, in a 300-degree circle. Just think of that in a directional mindset. So here they are. They're all over the Babylon, the large kingdom that he had, and they were supposed to do this. Now, why? Why music? I want to tell you why music. The occult world will use music to create vibrations in order to invoke spiritual forces. Okay, that's basically what, and also hypnotize people and get people in compliance to gel with the vision. You kind of go, ugh. And unfortunately, I don't have time to go into great details on this right now, but the Lord a while back had me go in and I said I did not want to do this. I did not want to study the occult. I did not. I was resisting. I fought it for a long time, and so finally I acquiesced and I went down and looked at it. So I found out Alice Bailey. And I said, boy, this stuff is boring. I can't read this junk. It's trash. And so when it came to me, I don't know, the Lord must have spoke to me. You can say whatever you want to say. But I said, well, it's a PDF. Why don't I just do a word search? So I started doing word searches on government, education, and then music. I also did vibrations. And oh my gosh. There's a whole Christian move all about sound and vibrations, not how God set up sound and vibrations, but how the occult world is to set the stage in a sort of a hypnotic way to create an atmosphere, a hypnotic atmosphere that you think a presence comes in and things will happen. And they use repetitive words too to invoke this thing. Some of them will use I heard a few of them say Baba Baba, B-A-B-A, Baba Baba Baba, and they say that. And I looked up Baba, and I think, if I remember correctly, it was a Hindu god that does signs and wonders and promotes healing and prophecy. So you got to check things out, folks. You really do. And also a lot of goofy things happen and a lot of Kundalini spirits happen. And this is why they were doing that, because they get people seduced with these fallen entities, would come down and manifest during the music with these vibrations and hypnotize people that this statue really meant. And they were all in sync with producing the Antichrist to come on earth. And that's what this statue was about, to protect the bloodline so it would happen and be established. I bet you didn't know that was in the book of Daniel. And it's in churches today, and they have the same doctrine, too. And you got to take over everything. You got to take over educational system. You got to re-educate the family. You're going to have to take over the arts and entertainment industry, the military, the government. You're going to have to take the 7 fears of cultural influence before Jesus can come back. Same philosophy, same ideology. They even use the same ideas that the pagans use of vibrations in order to create music in their church services hypnotically. Here you got it right there in Daniel chapter 3. You can pretty much a living testament of what was going on. No wonder God is a little perturbed, and he permitted this COVID virus. I mean, I'm telling you, I think we've hurt God's feelings enough. God is a God of love, but love hurts. Love has feelings. We don't think God has feelings. God's a jealous God. And yeah, he's very patient and kind, but he's not going to let iniquity go unpunished, especially when you're staining his name and making a mock of his name. You can't make a mock of God's name. I can't stress that anymore. So, okay, now we go to verse 8. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. Okay, let's modernize this. Chaldeans mean the clod breakers, the ambushers who hide and hunt souls of men and they drain the swamps with their captives in order to break the new ground. That's the kind of the idea what Chaldeans mean. And it came to be known also as the elite. So that certain elites came forward and accused the Jews. I mean, we got people in Congress accusing the Jews. I mean, these are covenant people that belong to God. I mean, let God deal with his own people, okay? They're covenant people. Don't curse the Jews. I mean, they're God's people, okay? It won't do you any good if you do. I'm just saying. But modern times, you can add Christians in there. You can just say, you can rephrase it like this. Therefore, certain time the elites came forward and accused God's people. And they spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, who wanted to protect the crown, O king, live forever. O you, king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of this music shall fall down and worship the gold image. Whoever does not fall down and worship the image will be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Verse 12, and there are certain Jews or certain Christians, or certain people of God whom you set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up. So here's Nebuchadnezzar. He's in a conundrum. Just think about it. He set up this thinking that it was Daniel's God, but then all of a sudden they don't. They worship. Yeah, it kind of dawned on him. Wow, Daniel wasn't talking about who he was thinking about. So there's got to be an example made of these guys, because Daniel had these 3 guys, his friends, made rulers over the Chaldean elites. And the Chaldean elites did not like that. This is prophetic, folks, because the world system does not like those who believe in God, Jews or Christians, or anyone who opposes them. Okay? They are the enemy. And you got to realize you do have people that are under the sway of principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places, like Ephesians chapter 6:12, who are motivated by these things to stir up and oppress you in order to bring about a new world order. And this is what the whole gist of this was. These guys are not worshiping this image. Let's go. You yourself said you're going to have to make toast out of these guys. And Nebuchadnezzar goes, ooh, if he already had to, he gave his word. So these are, see, in the realm of humanity just, we have a sin nature, and it's something that the devil cannot conquer. And no matter how hard he tries to get humanity into sin and stuff, sin nature will turn around and attack him. Okay, I'm just saying they will eventually rebel. History has proven that out. You oppress people long enough, they naturally will rebel all throughout history. Want a one world government, people rebel against it eventually. Okay, I'm just saying history has proven that true. That's what I'm talking about a sin nature. Now it does, and the devil most certainly can use the sin nature to his advantage. And he has great experience in that as well. But it always comes back to bite him. And so, only one that conquered sin and death is Jesus. So, put your faith in Jesus, and you won't be subject to the world like this. But the world will come against you. And so, like I said before in chapter 1, and I said in the other chapters we studied already, that Shadrach means the royal great scribe, Meshach means the guest of a king, and Abednego means the servant of Nebo. So what he was saying, these Chaldeans were saying, hey, Shadrach, that royal great scribe, which is probably Nintura or the scribe or the other scribe, Nebo, one of them, they're guest of the king, and they're supposed to be a servant of Nebo because Nebo is going to protect the crown, and your son's name is Beliashar, the prince of Baal, or prince of Baal, or prince of Bel, or Marduk, or whatever, and that's going to protect the royal bloodline. And these guys ain't worshiping the same God you think they are because they're not bowing down to it. So here's the litmus test. These people ain't worshiping the God you think he's worshiping, Nebuchadnezzar. They're not living true to the name that you forced upon them to live by. And that's the lesson we need to learn. We're Christians. The world will always try to name us to get in sync with them. And they've been successful in some Christian churches to do just that. To have great royal scribes, to be the guest of the king, servants of Nebo, in order to bring a one world government back, take over everything just like they want to do. Alice Bailey taught about it. Pulaski mentioned it. Crowley, all these other occultists, Michael Ford, I can name a dozen or so occultists who all talk about this stuff. And so they want this royal bloodline, and you have to take over basically the cultural centers of the world, of all nations, and flip them, okay, into a mindset of welcoming a one world leader to rule all. And these guys were not living up to that standard. Sadly, in some churches, people are being duped without them even knowing it, that that's what they're doing. So Daniel chapter 3:13. Then Nebuchadnezzar made Nebo protect the crown. In rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar spoke to them, saying, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of this music, I won't read the whole thing for the sake of time here, and fall down and worship the image which I have made good. But if you do not worship, you will be cast immediately into the burning, fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? Oh boy, I'm going to unpack this. So he is saying, I'm giving you a second chance because I like you guys. You guys help me out, but these elites here don't really like you, but you walk in integrity. You are smart. You're savvy. You've done great things. I'm going to give you a second chance because I'm boss man here. If you just hear the music and bow down and get into the vibes and get into the mind control and get in sync with helping me protect my royal bloodline so these new world order leader can come forth at some point in history or now or through my son, I will spare you. It says, who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? That's a pretty arrogant statement. This is what the world thinks of Christians. Who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? Nah, God ain't gonna protect you. You know what? Listen to what these guys said, and it should be an attitude that all of us should have. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, may Nebo protect the crown. It cracks me up. We have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, and nor will we worship the golden image which you have set up. Bingo. In other words, our God's going to deliver us. He can deliver us from the fire, and if we die in the fire, we still get delivered because we're going to heaven. Hallelujah. I feel sorry for you. Do you have that attitude? Can you develop that attitude? Do you have a heavenly mindset, eternal mindset, which is so neglectedly never hardly ever taught on anymore in scriptures anymore, or in churches very rarely taught? Think about it. Do you have any guts? Well, I just want to think. I'm not saying this to criticize you. I want you to really think, because we are headed for some dark times. This COVID virus has revealed what governors think of Christians and what the basically liberal left progressives think, and how they want to control all aspects of life, how they are taking over everything, how they want to set up a one world government because they are globalist, trying to mix the iron with the nation states here. They're trying to get these Daniel chapter 2 statute to walk. Before it walks, Jesus comes back and smashes it to bits. Remember, the tribulation period, it's only a 7-year period, but before that is a lead up to it called birth pangs. We're living in those birth pangs, folks, right now. This is worldwide. Doesn't just New Zealand pass some crazy laws to protect you for your peace and your safety? When they say peace and safety, we're doing this for you. We're going, like the Michigan governor in the United States arrested a 77-year-old man for wanting to open a barber shop. People are fed up with this stuff. And so they're doing things that are highly illegal under normal circumstances, but under our constitutions, when you declare in a state of emergency, governors can pretty much act like gods. So I think some more laws need to be passed to prevent this stuff, don't you think? But anyway, all this is coalescing toward a time when people are going to say, God's not going to deliver you. We are the power. Now, if you just get with the vibes and get with the program and get with us, everything will be okay. But can you say, if that is the case, the God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image which you have set up. We ain't. You can kill us, our God will deliver us, or rapture us, or we'll go through it, or whatever. We're going to serve the Lord. We're not going to serve the world system. We're not going to serve you. We're not going to bow our knee down to you. And they'll say, well, didn't the Bible say you got to honor government and all that stuff? Not when it gets offensive and making a choice between it and God. There comes a time, even in the first century church, they knew that. If you don't believe me, historically, one of the ways that the Roman emperors did, it says, if you don't worship and serve the emperor, you got to worship the emperor, and you got to honor the government. You say in the book, you honor the government. You're not honoring the government when you say you're not going to worship Nero. You're not going to worship the Roman emperors. And they said, no, we're not going to worship him. You can kill us. Our God will deliver us. They had that attitude. They conquered the pagan world with that attitude. We had that attitude today. Imagine what would happen. The Bible says, do not love your life unto death, right? Okay. That's what these guys, they understood who God was, and they were faithful. And so Nebuchadnezzar commanded the certain mighty men of valor, Gibborim, men of valor who were in his army, to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the fiery furnace. And then these men bound their coats, their trousers, turbans, and other garments were cast into the burning and they were cast into the fiery furnace. In other words, they tied them up and immediately threw them in there. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, the furnace was so exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The people who were going to persecute him and throw him and burn him, the fire came and killed them. Nice prophetic picture there. Let your mind wander on that. Verse 23. Then these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down and bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace that was so hot that it killed the guys pushing them in. But they were still alive. Then King Nebuchadnezzar, may Nebo protect the crown, was astonished. He rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? And they answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire. They are not hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. People like to say this was just a mere angel. Some commentaries Bible commentaries read that way, but if you research this out, this is the pre-incarnate Jesus, the one John wrote about. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Okay, this is the pre-incarnate Jesus. Jesus, it says in John chapter 1, his delight was in the sons of men. Okay, and so this is a pre-incarnate, the second person of the divine Trinity, which I don't have time to explain. Not 3 separate gods, but one God. And I tried to explain it. If God speaks, his word lives. Okay, you don't know what a spirit is. Don't be so proud thinking that you're going to make God's oneness like this tube of chapstick. That's not the idea of. It's an echad, a unity of oneness. And so a spiritual a being like God, if he speaks or whatever, so when he speaks, the world was created, and it says Jesus created the world. So if he speaks, his word is living. It would be his son. He wants to establish something, proceeds out from the Father, comes the Holy Spirit to establish it as a fact, to make it happen. Okay, it's just the idea. Then when they're done, they come back. In Jesus' own words, I proceed forth from the Father, the Holy Spirit proceeds forth from him. John said he's the Word. The Word became flesh. This goes back to Manoah. This goes back in Book of Judges. It goes back through the ancient Hebrew cosmology, that there was an entity that came, and it was known as the Malach Yahweh. Not the angel of the Lord, but the Malach Yahweh. There's no of there. There's no little preposition connecting the two, but modern English readers in the Masorite text put of there in English. It's not an angel. It's the word, the task bearer, Yahweh. That's what it means. Manoah thought he saw an angel, and he said, oh, you know what? This was no angel. This was God. Oh my God, we're going to die. And his wife said, no, we're not. He gave us favor to have Samson, a son. We're not killed. So the only way you can look upon God is looking through Malach Yahweh, the Son, Jesus. That's who this is. And this, to early Hebrew mindset, they would understand this. Modern mindset, not so much, because we're much smarter than they are. Probably a whole lot dumber too, but well anyway. But that's who Jesus, this is Jesus down here. He untied them, and he's walking around in the fire with them. And Nebuchadnezzar, hey, he looks like the Son of God. Jeez. And Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace. He went near, as close as he could go. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. And then the 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, came out from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of the head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not even on them. And Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his messenger. That's his Malach. That's the word Malach there. His messenger, not an angel, his messenger, and delivered his servants who trusted him. This is the word. He sent his word. That's what he's saying. delivered his servants who trusted him, and they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies that they should not serve nor worship any gods except their own God. All of a sudden, he got it. Now, there's a God that I don't really know about here. Therefore, I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be cut to pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. And then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. That's the entire chapter there. Let me break this down here. And so we have here, he's saying that the Malach, the messenger Yahweh, I mean the Son of God, the pre-incarnate Jesus, delivered his servants who trusted in him. Do you hear what that's saying? When you trust in Jesus, you're saved. He'll get you out of the fiery furnace, or if you die in it, you go to heaven. You can't lose. You can't. You just don't want to serve these false gods. Because you got to understand, when the people in the early church, there were a lot of miracles happen. A lot of people were spared martyrdom, and there were all kinds of things. There's a story about the Apostle John being boiled in a cauldron of oil in Ephesus, I believe it was, and he came out unharmed. There's a lot of incidences they talk about that. Some people pass it off as whatever, but and then other incidents where people were not delivered. But when the people were being martyred in the Colosseums in the Roman Empire at that time and being put to death, people were going to go, these are pretty decent people. They didn't lie. They could be trusted. They always did the right thing, and they had integrity, which we don't. And they're really, why are we doing this? And people actually became sickened of it, and all of a sudden more and more people came to Christ, and it collapsed the entire system. So the worldly system of that era and time. So and the Bible says, precious is the death of the Lord's saints to him, because they speak volumes, especially when the saints of God act like Christians and not act like the world. And if they are persecuted, they go down as walking in integrity, not lying, cheating, and stealing, and committing adultery, and doing wacky, stupid things, and going in the world of the occult, and doing this, that, and the other. And they're different. Your light is shining. You're like salt. People need salt to live. They need light to see. And they'll come to you and go, wow, what do you have? And if you're being persecuted, they'll go, these are pretty decent people. Now, can they say that now about the church? Think about it. I'll let you make up your mind on that. So that is the essence that I'm trying to get at here. Is there people really like this? Okay, so they want to trap you. They want to set you up. That's what the Chaldean elite did. But you got to have a mindset. No matter what comes, God can deliver me. But if he doesn't, I win. No matter what, we win. You got to have that mindset. You got to have, I did a study on the book of 2 Peter, and I said that you got to have the mindset that you are already dead. You're dead to the world, and you live resurrected to Christ. And you start thinking that way, and you let the Lord change you, get rid of the junk in your trunk and all the past traumas. I'll talk about that in a minute, and help you on your way. And I tell you, you don't want to go back to serving the world. And so Nebuchadnezzar did get it. He got it. This wasn't the God who he thought he was, that they were serving. This God is greater than all gods. He's the Most High. And so he promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So in the midst of things, when the world throws you stuff, if you walk right with God, he can get you out of it no matter how it will work. He can do it. Amen. Well, anyway, that is Daniel chapter 3. And I wanted to do Daniel chapter in sequence, but and save the Facebook live streams that I did. But the new Facebook live stream engine that's used is, to me, is really buggy. So when I downloaded it this time, it was so choppy. It was like this. I mean, it was, you were looking at me, and I was actually vibrating back and forth because the film clip. And so you try to watch it, I make you seasick. I mean, it was so unclean. It was just so I had like I did Daniel chapter 1. I just put everything and made it a podcast and made it short and just put a bunch of images and pictures on there to hide the jerky thing. And that takes a lot of time putting that stuff together. And I like doing things live stream. I like preaching in front of people. I like teaching in front of crowds, and I like that. I like doing live streams are much easier for me. Doing a radio show live in my basement is much easier for me than trying to do a video when I don't have anyone around. So just let you know that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it today. You get a chance to hear me preach a little bit as well. But that's the lesson here. If you have any questions, there's a few people here. Oh, Carrie's here. Hi, Carrie. Oh, wow. Carrie says YouTube suspended your account. They said they didn't like my last 50 posts. They censoring. Yeah, their censoring could be why you can't live stream. Well, they did get rid of one of my live streams. I went to go access it, and they said kindly content not appropriate. So I know my Facebook channel is probably on the hit list too. I'm sorry to hear that, Carrie. Just it's a design. That's just what they want. And if you follow me about the COVID virus and some of the YouTube videos, I hope to get this next one out for Josh Peck. I got one more. I got to do an ending segment for it, but I'm putting the pictures into it. I want to get it out to him as soon as possible, and also put the short version up on my site, but the long version will be on his site. Okay, so let's see. TL, as it was, it shall be the end. Azra, Nimrod, Babylon, Galamates into the Antichrist. Yeah, that's right. Pretty much says it all. You're right on that. We've entered into Babylon 2.0. We're probably probably 3.0 right now. And we need much courage and valor in the coming days. And that's right. We sure do. I know we have a few people watching. I didn't even announce this. In fact, I found out on YouTube channel, I got to have at least 1,000 subscribers in order to be able to do like a community page where I can make announcements. I'm trying to figure out a workaround to that. So I can get that worked around with you. I'm trying to figure out how I can do that to notify people. I'll try to do on Facebook. I also just maybe on the discussion page like I did, I'll just say I'm doing a live stream. This should catch us up from Daniel chapter 1 through 5. We'll get into chapter 6, and then we'll go into chapter 7, a lot of in-depth Bible prophecy. So I hope you learned something today about this, and don't mind my hair. I haven't had a haircut in over 50 some days, so hopefully my wife can cut it tomorrow and make me look more presentable. But it's getting a little scraggly and stuff. Anyway, I better let you guys go. And if there's not any more questions, I will go ahead. And again, Carrie, I'm so sorry. Jeez. If you got my website information, or you can go to Brian, BRYANMELVIN #1 at gmail.com. You can send me an email too if you want to keep contacting me, so you don't lose out, so I can at least make contact with you as well. I'm sorry about that Facebook thing. I expect it'll probably happen to me. The one advantage, I did do a private Facebook group, which gives you a little more slack than a public one does. I prayed about that many years ago when I set it up, and it's go private, don't go public. Everyone says go public, and Lord, they're really strong on me. I had to do it private. Now I understand why. I try to keep it up as long as I can. Hope this YouTube page will go up and stay up. And they are censoring things. They're using the COVID virus to lay the foundations for a surveillance state. And I would like for you guys who are listening to me and email me this too. If you've been on lockdown and stay-at-home orders during that time before you start opening up, if you have noticed new security cameras in your supermarket stores that you go to, like Kroger, Safeway, whatever, and Target, Walmart, or the other box stores, have you noticed some interesting new security cameras? We went to a King Soopers today in another city, a city close by, same cameras. And so what better way to use a surveillance state to get it set up so everybody has to go in just certain stores for a long period of time, use your phone data on your phone to track who you are, get facial recognition for a future surveillance state. Just think. This is what they want. I read the documents. They're on public domain. I'm not making it up. Everything I talked about the COVID virus and the scenario plannings are now in the headline news. Everything I said back in March, in April. I'm not saying I was a prophet. No, I just read the documents that pointed out the facts and connected the dots that showed forth from the research what they were up to. And now we're seeing the fruit of it. To me, they're laying the foundation stone, are setting up the platform, getting the bugs worked out for something bigger coming up. So be prepared. With that, God bless you all. I'm going to go ahead and end this. You be blessed in Jesus' name. Amen.